We're going to do a bit of a double act over the course of the next little while to talk you through some of the emerging learning that we've got from Leicester Ageing Together. As Ruth has already kind of referenced and mentioned, one of the key features of Ageing Better is that it's a test and learn programme. It's not about setting up a whole bunch of projects that are then continued for infinitum into the future. It's about doing some delivery and learning from it, finding some stuff out that can then be applied more widely across the city, across the country, across the area. Ageing Better has been designed to create an evidence base about what works to tackle social isolation. Many of us are fully aware of what the problems are around social isolation, but there's very little evidence about what you can actually do to change it, how you can actually tackle the project and help reduce that problem, help change it. Leicester Ageing Together has taken a really kind of unique approach in some ways across the Ageing Better programme, where it's been directly delivering services to people. So lots of people have benefited from this process of trying to reduce social isolation. But the key thing is that they've been learning along the way as it's gone. And we'll talk later about the formal evidence base that's been collected. Again, it was, I'm sure the partners who've been here will agree that sometimes the evidence collection has been a slightly painful process, but it's still really starting to yield those results now because the quality of the data that's coming out of this programme is fantastic. There's going to be some really, really good stuff about the changes that have been made to people's isolation. But alongside this formal kind of learning this evidence base, we're really keen on those insights, those little flashes of stuff that says, ah, yes, that's what makes a difference. That's what makes someone step out of the door. That's what makes someone engaged. Here's how to make a difference. Here's what we can build into projects to address that in the future. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. This is the first in a series of events, and I think it's really important to share that this is not the end point. We sometimes find ourselves, especially across the Ageing Better programme, at what point do you start sharing? Because we're collecting this evidence base, because it's going to be coming over the next 3, 4, 5 years, you're never sure when you start sharing. But we decided that actually what we can talk about at this stage is who we've reached, who we've engaged, who we've connected to through this project. And so that's what we're going to talk about here today and share some of those insights and learning. I've mentioned the common measurement framework. This is a kind of a key part that underpins our understanding of whether projects have made a difference to tackle social isolation. We're really finding from the data that's been collected so far that different projects reach people with different levels of social isolation. So projects like the one delivered by the Royal Voluntary Service, which is a home from a hospital type project, Living Streets, which is the walking project, and the Workers' Educational Association, which has been providing learning events, they have much lower levels, or relatively lower levels of loneliness about them. I should stress that this is a small data sample at this size. People like the Pakistan Youth Community Association, the Highfield Centre, and AGK's loneliness prescription, they have much higher levels of loneliness and isolation amongst the people that are accessing those services. So there's starting to be some interesting kind of learning about what type of activity you put on and whether those naturally or don't reach socially isolated older people. So we're going to use the data that's been collected to the common measurement framework and that early stuff and the insights that the partners have provided to share with you some learning around 5 key themes. So we're going to talk to you about how it helps to know your community in order to reach them. We're going to talk about how the tools that you use will determine who you reach. We'll talk about the time it takes to engage people, the fact that it really helps to provide that social contact element, and that there needs to be a pathway. And by this, I mean it's hard to move people on. You know, once they're comfortable, they like to stay. So you might have designed this beautiful pathway, but actually people don't actually like to move along. All right, so this point about it helps to know your community. We've looked at some of the data, and the organisations, just in broad terms, those that have more of the national profile, those of them that have a kind of a bigger name to them, I suppose, tend to recruit people that roughly reflect the ward profile, or the ward kind of stuff that's there. So across Leicester, around 50% of the population describe themselves as white, and so roughly between 50 and 60% of the people that they're reaching are tending to be white. That contrasts really sharply with the smaller organisations and those local organisations who are reaching much more targeted from the BAME groups, where they're reaching levels of 95, 99, 100% of people from that group. So it helps to show that actually being local, being within that organisation immediately increases your pull within those targeted communities. When we've spoken to older people about why they go, why is it that they use these local organisations rather than others, it's to do with the proximity, the fact that it's part of the community, that it feels like it belongs to them. It's not something that they just do themselves. So they say things like, it's okay, we can walk there. They say things like, there is somewhere that they feel comfortable going. It's that sense of place, that sense of something that belongs to them. We're getting some really interesting information coming about how the tools you use determine who you reach. So it's really interesting to know that hardly anyone who is socially isolated attends a project because of a leaflet. You know, I'm not saying that leaflets and that kind of information raising doesn't have a role within it, but you're not going to get a socially isolated person to attend an event as a result, or to attend something as a result. It's a trusted person who encourages that person to walk through the door, to take that step through. Be it a GP, a family member, or another trusted professional. That's someone that they believe, someone that say, yes, this is for me. And there's a really interesting kind of bit of emerging learning that's coming about, which we're going to directly contradict with the case study that we're going to talk to you about in a minute. That actually those projects that rely on referrals from statutory services, so those that work with GPs or with hospitals or with adult social care, reach lower numbers of BAME people than those that rely on that sort of more informal network. So again, some interesting learning there. That's if you actually want to reach people, how do you reach them?
Yes, now the case study that Amy's referring to, it's an elderly gentleman who joined our elders group, which is run at the Highfield Centre. We facilitate these on a Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. He was referred by a health professional. He'd had heart surgery, recovering at home, had found it very difficult. He had been very active, he had a very active job. I think it was making pharmaceutical packaging, very busy life. Had sports as hobbies, and he was really suffering. He went to his GP with depression, and he was introduced by the psychiatrist that he was referred to the elders group at Highfields. He was quoted as saying that really his whole lifestyle had changed. He felt he'd become a different person. But after joining the elders group, at first he was very quiet, he didn't really join in, he sat in the corner, but slowly he started to meet people, he started to gain confidence. They're saying to me now he still has some health issues, but he feels a lot better, he feels a lot happier, and in his words, he can now meet people, have a joke, have a laugh. Recently, the elders group, they asked him if he wanted to be a spokesperson for the group. He agreed, he wanted to now give something back, which was, a very positive development. And even said, it's because of this place I am what I am now. So it's a great case study.
The other really key message for those of you here who have a role within service development and kind of commissioning services and those elements of stuff is the time it takes to engage people. And this can't be underestimated in terms of how long it can take to build that trusting relationship. I think it would be fair to say that this is an emerging theme across all of the Ageing Better programmes. It isn't something that's just coming out of Leicester. One of the reasons for this, or one of the things that we're finding particularly within Leicester, is that people have practical problems to solve, just things that they need to put in place in order to be able to get them out of the house, whether that's perhaps accessing some benefits to allow them to get some money for taxis, whether it's about building a ramp so they can get in and out, practical little things that need to be resolved. There's also this really important issue of building trust. You have to be able to make a connection with someone and to help that connection do. And as much as we like numbers, we like big numbers, we're proud of the fact that over 5,000 people have been helped by Leicester Ageing Together. We're proud of the fact that there have been 1,300 volunteers. If we're being really honest, the numbers need to be low, because the lower numbers mean that there's longer time to engage. It allows people to engage more. So again, the message is that it takes that time to build the trust and to get things to happen. And we've got some practical examples of this through the delivery that's happened within Leicester Ageing Together. The social prescribing project that's been run by Age UK, it was set up with an idea of connecting people to social projects. In reality, what they're spending a lot of time doing is solving problems for people, helping them access benefits, helping them resolve things. After that, some of them move on, but it's been much more of a problem-solving role than a kind of connection role. The Workers' Educational Association, I think, used a beautiful term and phrase of whirlwind. It can feel like a whirlwind when you're suddenly exposed to come and do all of these things, come engage, come engage, come engage. And actually, the more socially isolated older people really struggle with that. They struggle to navigate their way through to decide which of these is right for me. And that takes time to help people work through. They need to start, they need to stop, they need to do different things. And then we have Action on Hearing Loss, which started the project with an aspiration to do home visits, to get out into the community, to reach people. And you can argue about the rights and the wrongs of the decisions that were made within Leicester Ageing Together about whether this was the right thing to do, but they found that was taking so much time to build that connection, to build the trust. Each visit was lasting over an hour and a half, that they decided they had to pull back from doing that in order to be able to reach the numbers that they wanted to reach. Our fourth theme is that it really helps to provide social contact projects. Most of the delivery within Leicester Ageing Together either starts or finishes with some kind of opportunity to connect to other people. As human beings, we are social animals. We like to speak to people. We like to connect with people. You will notice that throughout this presentation, we're talking about social isolation, not loneliness. That's a really key, important point within the Ageing Better program, because loneliness is a subjective feeling. You can have lots of contact, but you can still feel lonely, as was beautifully demonstrated by the story we heard earlier. Whereas social isolation is an objective measure about the connections, the number of connections that you have with people. And so what we're trying to do through the Ageing Better program and through Leicester Ageing Together is to increase those numbers of connections. Social groups that have specific themes are really important, but also that ownership of those themes is really great. So an example that comes from another Ageing Better area is something that one of the Age Better in Sheffield projects has funded, which is a Northern Soul Funk Night. Now, I can guarantee that none of the professionals in this room would have designed a Northern Soul Funk Night for their over 65 population. But if you ask them over 65s about what did you love doing when you were younger, I used to love going to Northern Soul Nights in the 70s, you know. It's about recapturing, connecting people to what they used to enjoy. But a really important point is that it's not about just doing it. It's not about parachuting in. You know, we were talking about ABCD before. It's about supporting people to do it themselves, setting up that system and that function, which means it doesn't always work. It means that sometimes it doesn't gain traction. It means sometimes it doesn't get going. But it's about creating that. And this idea that you're supporting people to remember what you used to love, wherever that is from, and whatever part of the world, whatever kind of time frame it is, and reconnecting with that. And then creating those conditions where people can take ownership of it.
Yes, we've got a great case study of this, in as much as about 6-8 months into the programme, we realised that we were really, really struggling to engage with people from the Thurncourt ward. We put on taster sort of events, a few people came along, but we just couldn't really get to engage with them. So through WEA, we decided to start a pop-up cafe. We took over Ocean Road Community Centre. We thought, let's try it for 6 weeks. We flyered sort of local streets, and we put an advert in the newsletter. And day one came, we had an A-board outside, a few of us stood outside accosting dog walkers and people with, taking their grandkids to school. Week 1, not very good. Week 2, week 3, week 4, we were thinking, this isn't working, we're going to have to try another route. But by week 5, I think we had about 12 or 15 people there. So this was really seemed to be taking off. So week 6, we were up to 20, and we thought maybe this really is going to work. And it did. It's just been a most fantastic initiative. It's got to the stage where the people who attend are getting very involved with the cafe themselves. They've been bringing in cakes, bread, they've been bringing in their own music. And we've created really a very informal, a drop-in, it's no commitment, a friendly, safe, stimulating social environment. It's really, really worked. And what's happened now is that certain cafe members, they've enjoyed some of the craft sessions. You saw some of the pictures that Ruth put up earlier. And they've gone on to say, I do some crafts at home. They've been participants, but they've then offered to come in and bring their own craft material in, maybe just sit in the corner and sort of do it themselves. But then obviously there's been an interest in what they've been doing, and they've now started to deliver their own craft sessions. So we couldn't have even imagined that would happen. So after about a year or so, WEA decided to run a bit of a focus group with the cafe. So we looked at, I'm trying to think of the different areas we looked at. Well, first of all, what do you like most about the cafe? So we tried to extract that information. What would make it better? And then asked the cafe attendees, how would they think it would work without us being there? And slowly, we formed a management group underpinned by a lot of support from WEA. And, they're going on now to run it themselves. We've moved venue. Ocean Road Community Centre had to close, unfortunately. So we're over at Thurnby Lodge Community Centre. They're taking subs for the refreshments, organising activities, and it really is a great success story and a great social contact project. Some pictures there. The ladies in the top craft sessions. Here we had Leicester City Football Club. They have a Sporting Memories initiative through their trust, and they came and delivered a session with old memorabilia from Leicester City Football Club. Again, craft session, but this is a lady who brought in her own crafts and is showing these other ladies how to do it, and a great drumming group.
Excellent. And then our final point is around the need for a range of pathways and opportunities to connect people to. Again, we're constantly searching for this silver bullet, this magic, yes, if we do this, we will solve this problem, we will sort this problem out. But in reality, people like different things, they engage in different ways. We have introverts and extroverts, we have all kinds of different people, and just because you're getting older doesn't mean that that diversity goes away. And so there needs to be a range of opportunities available for people, things for people to try, to dip in and to dip out of. But the key thing is that people get comfortable. They like what they like to go what they like to. You'll experience it yourself when you go to, if any of you do a regular exercise class, I bet most of you always like to get the same spot within the room, or go on the same bike, or go wherever it is. We're comfortable, we're creatures of habit. What we found has worked well within Leicester Ageing Together is where we've been able to put clusters of projects under a single umbrella. So the work that Age UK has done they've been able to connect people up. And part of that is that there's a friendly face, so it's not about going to something new, there's someone that they feel familiar with. And the other thing that's worked really well is projects within projects, so people going along to an existing group and providing some support. Key thing is that signposting, much in the same way as leaflets, won't work on its own. You know, you can't just say to someone, all right, you finished your 4 weeks here, here's something else that you can do, because they're unlikely to do it. Unless you provide something extra, some support, back to that trusted professional idea, they're unlikely to take it up on their own. That doesn't mean that you won't be able to point to half a dozen case studies where this has happened, because of course, but in general terms, that's what we found is a challenge.
Yes, I mean, as we spoke about earlier, it's almost unheard of that we would have so many partners all working together, and that's what we've done with Leicester Ageing Together. And this meant that obviously we could offer different support, services and activities. Now our partners connected through our partner meetings, regular partner meetings, through delivery staff meetings. So those staff on the ground were getting together, discussing what was working, what the different services they offered. We had a platform called Yammer, I don't know if anyone's familiar with Yammer, sort of Facebook for business, where we could share ideas, successes, make requests. So there was a lot of great connection going on. Through that connection, we were offering the pathways. And we have a partner, I've just finished now, but Focus, Ruth spoke about them earlier, they're the intergenerational younger person's charity that wanted to work with older people. They were really struggling to find beneficiaries, and it wasn't their area of expertise. But because we were a partnership, they connected up with the Highfields Elders Group for this wonderful pot painting class. And we have this lovely quote here: "Spraying the pots was so much fun. I've never done this before. The young boy showing me how to do it was very kind. He didn't speak Gujarati, but that didn't matter. He spoke the language of art." So, yes, joint up work, pathways, that's a great case study there.
So what do we want you to do as a result of today? I think the key thing about Ageing Better and as the programme as a whole is, of course, it would be wonderful if someone wanted to give millions of pounds over to tackle the problem or that kind of thing, but that's not what Ageing Better was set up to do. Ageing Better was set up to test, to see what worked, and then to share that learning with people. Fundamentally, the programme is most interested in changing the way that other services are delivered rather than necessarily directly commissioning new ones. So we want you to learn from it. We want other people to take away the information, to take some insights, to take those nuggets and to go, actually, that's interesting. Maybe in the next 18 months, you could do a bit more about that. So we want you to keep in touch with the website, find out what's going on in there, pick up the phone, speak to the team at Leicester Ageing Together to say, actually, we're doing this. Could we do something more? Do you mind finding out a bit more about that? There is this learning resource attached to the programme so you can use it and deploy it. And because we're interested in sharing and collecting that learning together, If you have any information from yourself, from perhaps some research projects that you've been doing, from any insights you've got from the area itself or wider areas, share them with the team, and it can all be collated together onto one banner. So when someone wants to develop a project to tackle social isolation, or when someone's developing a commissioning brief, they come to a point, they come to here and say, that's how we do it. That's how we kind of set up a service that allows us to really make the biggest impact and difference.